One of the fundamental rules of photographic composition is to clearly identify the subject to be photographed. Let's take a look at this composition, which, although very beautiful from a naturalistic point of view, lacks significance in terms of composition. It doesn't provide indications about the key subject, so the eye doesn't know exactly where to focus and wanders from one point to another without a stable focal point to concentrate on. Therefore, we need to precisely define what we want to photograph, focusing on it and filling the frame with the desired subject. Therefore, here is an example of a more meaningful composition. We have clearly emphasized the subject of the photograph, filling the frame with it and identifying it clearly. Identifying a key subject is often one of the most challenging aspects of photographic composition, or in general, in the field of 3D. For instance, in this shot, let's ask ourselves what we want to show to the viewer: the houses, the boats, or the lake's panorama. A generic framing like this is often referred to as a postcard-style shot. It may seem pleasant in terms of content, but when considering it from a photographic and compositional standpoint, it lacks coherence. Therefore, we need to consider what we want the observer to focus their attention on. So instead of trying to capture everything we see, let's focus on a single element, which could even be a simple geometric shape or a detail like this. So the first rule is to find a subject and focus the framing on it. A key factor in adding dynamism to a composition is the point of view. Just like in life, changing perspective in photographic composition can sometimes open us up to new paths. The following example shows a simple tree that, in itself, doesn't communicate anything special. However, let's try to change perspective. And let's see how a simple change in perspective can convey much more energy and dynamism. Another very important element of visual composition is adding a foreground to give more depth to the scene. When looking at this photographic composition, we can see how incorporating a foreground can enrich the depth and interest of the composition. The foreground element can be anything that adds depth and three-dimensionality to the scene. And here is another example. Another useful tip for photographic composition concerns the framing effect, which involves placing a real frame around the subject, created by an element that we can add within the frame. This helps guide the observer's attention towards the main element of the photo. Let's compare a composition of this kind with one where we add a real frame around the subject, like trees. Another key principle of photographic composition is the positioning of the main subject. When placed in the center, the composition will be more balanced and stable, whereas if moved to the side, it will be more dynamic and energetic. Here we have another example with a central subject. The composition is stable, yet quite boring. By shifting the subject to the left, we have introduced a sense of movement. Now the gaze tends to move from left to right, creating a sense of directionality and dynamism. Let's go back to the example of changing perspective. This is a standard frame of what we can observe at normal eye level and in a straight position. Try changing your viewpoint to see what we can achieve.